Hey there, Heather, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to yet another Cutter Top 10 video. And today, as I'm rocking the Leafs thingy, I know I have right underneath for something else, but yeah. The Toronto Maple Leafs, I think that's starting to tear. Oof. Yeah, my jersey's starting to tear. Mothballs. Nevertheless, today we're going to be talking about the top 10 NHL non goalies in history. I already did the top 10 NHL goalies of all time, and of course, Patrick Waugh number one. A lot of people probably think it's biased, but screw you, that's my list. So anyway, we're talking about the top 10 non-goalies, and of course, centers, wingers, and defensemen. Coaches don't count, unfortunately. I think I did coaches, didn't I? Yeah, I did. But anyway, here we go. And of course, it's a subjective list and all that. Okay, number 10 is Mark Moose Messier, playing for Edmonton, the Rangers, Vancouver, and then back to the Rangers. Messier was a dominant center, and he was known for being a leader. He was kind of the captain of the Oilers, well, after Gretzky left in 1988. But Messier had production toughness, clutch play performance, and he was in the WHA, the World Hockey Association. People forget about that. He was with Cincinnati and then went to, I think, Birmingham or something. I don't know which team he went to because his team folded. But anyway, Messier was picked by the Oilers in the draft, and a lot of people basically had things working. But yeah, Mark Messier was a good player, and of course his leadership was defined with him being traded to the Rangers in 1991 for Kitchener's Stephen Rice, Bernie Nichols, and Louis Dubresque. Anyway, Messier would be the leader and help the Rangers out, winning the President's Trophy for best regular season performance in the NHL in 1992. Unfortunately, though, they lost in the second round of the Penguins, but in '94, after kind of ousting Roger Nielsen, Messier had to be a good leader. He actually quelled Mike Keenan's competitive fires, and they had a meeting and all that. Messier, of course, did the game six. We will win, I guarantee it, kind of thing. And of course, they did it. So Messier did his job helping them out. Unfortunately, his time in Vancouver was controversial. He took the number 11, which was unofficially retired for Wayne Mackey because of his brain cancer. He basically strong armed his way to the Canucks, and then 3 years later he was booted, and the Rangers gave him a chance, and Vancouver finally could retire number 11 again. Number 9 is Nick Lidstrom. Here's some great defensemen that didn't make this list: Dennis Potvin, Ryan Horner, and even Eddie Shore. But the fact of the matter is that Nick Lidstrom was consistent. He was smart. He could control games with positioning, poise, and elite decision making. And it didn't hurt that the Red Wings knew how to tap into the Swedish market. I even had Nicholas. I don't know if I have Nick Lidstrom's rookie card from 1991-92, but yeah, Nick Lidstrom was a pretty good defenseman. I had his rookie card, and I had Vladdy Konstantinov's rookie card. But the fact of the matter is that Nick Lidstrom knew what he was doing. He stayed with the Red Wings for his one season, like nothing compared to him. Anyway, Lidstrom was good for the Red Wings when getting all those playoff berths in a row and winning a few cups along the way. So, Detroit knew how to draft outside the box. Number 8 is Jaromir Jagr. He probably would have been a little bit higher, but because of his time in the KHL between NHL stints, he couldn't do it. There are many teams he played for. He even played for Calgary. Did you not know that? I didn't know that, obviously. But anyway, so Jagr was this draft pick. He was picked 5th overall in 1990 from Czechoslovakia from the Iron Curtain. And surprisingly, the Iron Curtain let him go to Pittsburgh. He did his job and all that. He was good. He was a good rookie and all that. He scored a overtime winning goal against the New Jersey Devils in the first round. Jagr also in his sophomore season did that creative Stanley Cup final goal that he basically weaved through the whole Chicago defense and dragged the puck past Ed Belfour to tie game 1. He was good. Jagr and Lemieux were iconic together, and of course, Jagr would soon become big for his britches, moved to Washington, then to New York, then to many other teams like Dallas and Philadelphia. Yeah, he had longevity and a good point total, but he had a 4-year stint in the KHL, 2 to 4 year stint in the KHL between NHL stuff. What would have happened if he stayed in the NHL? I don't know. Number 7 is Alex Ovechkin. I know everyone will say boo hiss, but the fact of the matter is Alex Ovechkin is known for his goal scoring ability, not his overall game and all that. He is the greatest goal scorer in history, of course, to my chagrin, because I wanted Gretzky to have that record. Shooting ability, durability, long-term dominance. He's better than his other number one draft pick rival, mostly because he stayed healthy. He actually did. He was healthy and all that, which is great. But the fact of the matter is that Alex Ovechkin kind of needed to have the assists to match the goals. That's just my opinion. And basically, Ovechkin being left open, wide open, and him scoring, like teams had to adjust. But yeah, Ovechkin did well. He was the number one draft pick 2004. He would have played in the 04-05 season, but of course, that was the year the strike ruined the season. And then Ovechkin in 06 had that famous goal on his back against the Coyotes that made Darren Pang, the Coyotes color guy, give a massive holy jumping. Ovechkin learned how to do a lot of things, and he made Russian hockey players cool again. Number 6 is Sid the Kid. He would be a little bit higher, but unfortunately, injuries would ruin him. He is the best all-around player of his generation. Elite offense, leadership, playoff success, a two-way game, and he could pass the puck, kind of like Ovechkin. Unlike Ovechkin, his number one rival. Crosby was the number one draft pick in 2005. Of course, that was the year that the NHL got wiped out, and then they had a lottery ball system that basically rewarded terrible play in the last 7 years. Everyone thought the Rangers were going to get Crosby based on that, but Pittsburgh did. And anyway, Crosby did all that. Crosby had a good rookie campaign himself, and of course, famously had that shootout goal that popped the water bottle. And Gordon Miller of TSN said, "Welcome to the Crosby Show, Canada." Of course, that's when Crosby was beloved and not what he is now. Regardless, Crosby looked pretty good. Unfortunately, concussions would kind of ruin his career. He had a couple of them within days of each other in 2011, which would actually almost kill off a season for him. So that's that. Number 5 is Jean Beliveau. I think Jean Beliveau was great because, not only did he have one of the highest Stanley Cup totals ever, actually, he has more Stanley Cups than any other person in NHL history, not just player. Beliveau actually won some cups as a a consulting role with the Habs, if you must know. But yeah, Jean Beliveau was a legendary center leader for the Habs, known for skill, class, playoff excellence, championship success, and a pretty good grasp of both English and French. But yeah, Jean Beliveau was amazing in all that. He scored a lot of goals. He scored more than 500 goals in his career. In 1971, his final season, he got to 500 goals, which was amazing. And all that, kind of like Rocket Richard. He was a leader and all that, winning all those cups in greatness and all that. He was so revered that in 1994, he was actually pegged to be the next Canadian Governor General. If you don't know, in Canada, the Governor General is basically the representative of Canada towards the British Commonwealth. Well, if the British Commonwealth is still alive. But unfortunately, well, it's going to start dissipating. But anyway, Jean Beliveau rejected it. It would have been nice to see a hockey player as a Governor General and all that. Nevertheless, number 4 is his rival from Detroit, Gordie Howe. Mr. Hockey had scoring, toughness, longevity, and consistency. And he was one of the sport's defining figures. Now, of course, Gordie Howe famously was homesick during a Rangers training camp thing at age 15, and then found out that his friends were headed to Galt or Sarnia to do stuff with the Red Wings, and he went there. But anyway, Gordie Howe was great. Unfortunately, people forget that Gordie Howe's career could have ended terribly. In 1950, in the playoffs against the Toronto Maple Leafs, Ted Kennedy went for a check, and then Gordie Howe's head hit the boards, and he was concussed, and basically they thought he would have died. They had to go through the brain and drill a part in the brain to alleviate the swelling and all that. That's how bad it was. Of course, hockey helmets were not mandated till 1979. But Gordie Howe got injured. He missed the 1950 playoffs. The rest of the 1950 playoffs, they won the cup. But then he came back. He had that little twitch in his face, but he still was amazing. He even played up to age 52 in the NHL. Well, he did play from 46 to 72 with the Red Wings. Or is it 71? Well, 71. But then, you know, he had the thing. He was going to be a consultant for his sons who were drafted in the WHA with Houston. But Gordie Howe couldn't resist putting the blades on. And for Houston, he was good. The brothers were Mark and Marty. And then he decided to play in the NHL for the Hartford Whalers in 1980. Well, they had his WHA rights. And scored a goal in the final game of his career against the Montreal Canadiens and Richard Sevigny, which was a weird goal, but it counts. But yeah, he was an icon and all that. And his wife Colleen was one of the best hockey managers of all time. Trust me. Number 3 is Mario Lemieux. Yeah, I know he had an injury plagued career, but the dude did something that was amazing. He had an extraordinary produce strength. He was unstoppable at his peak. He was basically the anti-Gretzky, if you will. Lemieux was dominating the Quebec Major League in 1984. He actually played in the Memorial Cup in Kitchener. Kitchener hosted the Memorial Cup in 1984, and Laval, the team he was playing for, was one of the 4 teams. They didn't do so well. Basically, it was just Mario and 19 other has-beens, maybe. Lemieux was the #1 draft pick for Pittsburgh in 1984. Unfortunately, he refused to wear the jersey because of contract problems and all that. But thankfully, though, it all dissipated. He scored in his first shift 11 seconds in. And, of course, it was magic. It didn't take till like 1988 for them to realize that there was a new competitor to Gretzky's dominance, and that was Mario Lemieux. Lemieux was the guy who stopped Gretzky from winning the MVP in 1989, breaking Gretzky's 9-year run. Mario was good in 91 despite a massive back problem that forced someone to tie his skates together. Lemieux still was dominant and all that. His points per game in the playoffs was amazing, giving the Penguins the Stanley Cup. And then, 92 was just as good. But then 1993 popped up. He won the scoring title by 12 points over Pat LaFontaine. But the problem was, well, it was amazing. He actually did it despite missing 20 plus games because of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a form of cancer. He had a form of cancer, and he still played, and he still won the scoring title. That's how good he fucking was that year, 92, 93. What people call one of the greatest, if not the greatest seasons of all time. I think so too. Anyway, Lemieux would retire from the 94-95 season because of back problems and everyone just basically obstruction holding and all that. Lemieux would finally decide to retire for good in 97, but then 2000, the Penguins were almost sold to other cities like Hamilton. There were a lot of questions about things. Lemieux was the owner of the Penguins, but then he decided to skate for the Penguins and maybe help the Penguins out as a player. So December 27, 2000, he's laced on the skates against the Leafs, put up 3 points, and then he was still there. And Pittsburgh got to the conference finals against the Devils. He retired in 2006 after, I think, a massive hit or something. I think he got injured. But he was there for Crosby's first season, so that was good. Number 2 is Bobby Orr, the greatest defenseman of all time. Some say Paul Coffey. A lot of people would probably say, why don't you put Paul Coffey on the list? A, it's not the top 10 defenseman of all time. It's the top 10 goalies. And B, I don't think he's good enough to make this list. And C, even though he was a Kitchener Ranger for half a season, but that counts, I can't show bias. And I already did the top 10 Kitchener Rangers of all time, in my opinion. Anyway, Bobby Orr was the greatest defenseman ever. The only problem was his knees. It actually started in a game, a few OHL games and all that. He was so wanted as a 12-year-old that the Oshawa Generals were salivating trying to get Bobby Orr and all that. But yeah, Bobby Orr was good. He signed a massive contract. Allen Eagleson helped him with that. Great rookie contract, and he proved it. He was a great defenseman. He actually won the Norris, aka the Defenseman of the Year, from 1968 till 75, and then Harry Howell finally broke that record. But yeah, he was one of the great defensemen of all time. He was a dominant offensive force. It was not uncommon to see him in the top 5 in scoring, goals plus assists, and being with Phil Esposito. Orrin Esposito ruled the world. Boston had 2 Stanley Cup titles. Unfortunately, his knees ruined him. And, what might have been a Bobby Orr was healthy all the time. He was a good defensive player as well, obviously. But yeah, it was amazing to see Bobby Orr in his prime just dominate. Of course, as I said, the knees hurt him. He actually played 20 games for the Chicago Blackhawks. Bet you didn't know that. I would not have known that. But anyway, Bobby Orr did his job. Well, Ovechkin's was a one-team guy. Jean Beliveau was a one-team guy. Crosby was a one-team guy. So was Gordie Howe and Mario Lemieux. No, sorry, Howe wasn't in Hartford. Mario Lemieux was one-team guy. But yeah, Bobby Orr was with the Blackhawks. Of course, that was because Allen Eagleson ruined a contract that the Bruins were willing to pay him and give him ownership, becoming a player owner. But yeah, Bobby Orr was good and all that. And you know what might have been. And the clear number 1 is Wayne Gretzky with a lot of NHL records. I don't know how many he had 61 records when he retired in 1999. I don't know how many he has now. At least 50. But yeah, the guy still got a lot of records. Ovechkin may have his goal scoring record, but Gretzky has the assist and points record. And at one time, Gretzky had more points, had more assists than anyone else had points at the time. One time, Wayne Gretzky has to be number 1. I mean, he went to the OHL. He played for the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds and did quite well for 1 year. And they went to the World Hockey Association because they were willing to have like teenagers like Gretzky. He played for Indianapolis for a while, then got traded to Edmonton before the Racers got erased. He. Pun intended. And then with Edmonton, they used a pick to keep him on the team and not put him in the draft, and Edmonton was happy for it. Gretzky was a natural-born leader. 1982, he really blew up with his 92 goals in one season, which will not be surpassed. Brett Hall was close with 86. Not even Ovechkin could put up 60, 70 goals in one season in his prime. And then, of course, Gretzky was just amazing with those assist marks in like 1984 and 1985, the year of my birth. All the cups, of course, after the Oilers got forfeited, the Oilers went on their own run, 4 cups in 5 years. That Gretzky was there for 84, 85, 87, 88, and of course 86 was Steve Smith's gaff. But Gretzky gave Steve Smith the cup in 1987, so that was good. Gretzky was amazing. Unfortunately, he knew he would be traded because Walter Gretzky, his dad, told him so. And Gretzky engineered the trade in a sense. He got the Kings to pick up Marty McSorley. Gretzky could have vetoed the trade, but he couldn't. He said he was in too deep. And a lot of Canadian hockey fans and Oiler fans, for that matter, were pissed with his LA press conference. He rarely cried. And in Edmonton, he did. Some said he was a national traitor because Janet Jones, his wife, was from Hollywood. It was so bad that in the House of Commons, like Canadian Parliament, an NDP member tried to have a bill to ban Gretzky being traded because, that was Canada's best natural resource. Gretzky's trade to LA was big. Kings were decent. They decided to wear silver and black. I don't know if that was because of Gretzky, but anyway, yeah. And the Kings merchandise went flying off the shelves. Gretzky basically got revenge on Edmonton by not only scoring the point that got him past Gordie Howe for the most points in his career, which he still has, but by taking care of the Oilers in the 1989 playoffs, being down 3-1. And of course, 1990 aside, Gretzky would put up some massive point total. 91, he got injured by Gary Sutter in the Canada Cup. He had some problems. 93, he shut that piano on his back, as Bob McKenzie put it, to lead the Kings to the Stanley Cup Finals, where they would lose to Montreal, but still, he was good. And it was good for Gretzky. He moved to St. Louis. He went to the Rangers. He could have stayed in. He would have been in Vancouver or Toronto, but he wanted to join Messier. But then Messier left for Vancouver. Gretzky, of course, yeah, he could have been in Toronto, but the Toronto owner said, "How many seats will that fill?" Well, every game at MLG was sold out, but still, I mean, yeah, yeah. Gretzky's trade actually was fake because it made the United States and the Deep South in particular, more viable for hockey. I mean, why else would there be teams in Atlanta, Nashville, Dallas, and Phoenix? Well, of course, Gary Bettman's a POS, but still, the Gretzky trade helped Southern U.S. hockey. Can't stand it. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond.